This is Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is a witch of sorts from Slavic folklore. She has a lot of things attached to her, and it's not really just a Slavic folklore, but what it's turned into and its development into what it is now is definitely something along that. And then, of course, that Roman and Transylvanian thoughts that we all have. You can look at these pictures here as they flash by, and it'll definitely look a lot like, like Halloween, if you will, really. And she has a cauldron that she's famous for. She has familiars. These are animals that watch out for her, and over her shoulder she has a cat and a raven. And these will prowl the forest looking for people coming to you. And indeed, the tale is before you ever get to her, she knows who you are. She has human skulls pinned around on sticks or stakes near herself, and that you shouldn't go close to her. Some hints of you finding a way getting close to this witch was that you would see fabric that was unknown to you hanging into trees. And there's a lot. I mean, it gets deep. I could literally go an hour into the things that are said in tales and folklore and little things that go along with it. But it's used a lot in a threatening way nowadays, kind of like you would think of a Hansel and Gretel story, where that witch that could be out in the woods is drawn into it. And it's a way to actually succumb to an idea of lost children sometimes, children that went out to do things or gather stuff and never came back, and you would say she was with Baba Yaga now, right? And so all this strange things come with this. What's odd about it is Baba and Yaga, her name's actually itself is Proto-Indo-European dialect. It has a lot of connections to it. Baba has to do with babies and rebirth in a way, and it's strange. It just locks right into it. Linguistics have traced it back to the point they say that either the people were trying to name things off of sounds babies made, or it literally was the first of the linguistics in there. So it works well. But you get Babel, and that's the gate of the gods, and concepts that work with this. And she's a shamanistic lady. In most all of her edification, she's a shamanistic lady, and carries with her a power of divination that people seek out. And she's not a bad witch, and she's not a good witch. So whenever they ask that in the Wizard of Oz, this is one who would just kind of shrug her shoulders. Actually, you look at her and you wouldn't have that in any way of a thought. It's a strange thing too. She has this potion that she has. If you look, she's got blonde hair, and she's got a red hood on. Um, she's got a potion that she can make out of blue lotus or blue flowers or blue roses, whichever way that you look at it, and it de-ages her by a year, but every time she gives out a divination to you, it ages her a year. She knows the day of her death, and so she's very restrictive of giving out information. And so you have to pay her greatly for her divination. And strangely enough, this is supposedly where the idea, along with a bunch of others later, where the idea of it costing you an arm and a leg had come from. Now she is hooked up with these fairies and ifrits, and she's not known to fly with a broom like you see constant witches are known to be, and is shown that it's here. She's known to be somewhat of an old hag, and she's always old, and so she's teetering on that elder age, and she keeps doing these potions and things, and they of course say that she has to steal the children's essence, and this makes her young again. We've seen this echoed and echoed and echoed. Well, her house was this marvelous house here. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen Howls Moving Castle. Anybody familiar with that? It's kind of a, it's this Jap animation situation. Real cool though, and it's got some cool actors that do the voices from it, and it's actually pretty neat. My daughter got into it. I had to watch it, and I've seen it a couple of times. It's pretty neat, but of course I got to tell her, I ruined the whole thing for her. I go, you know where this comes from? This guy, and I starts telling her stories and everything about it. But this moving house that she has, Baba Yaga's Magic Hut, and it's something that you run into in Dungeons and Dragons. We have talked a lot about me and playing Dungeons and Dragons and so on. It's where I got a lot of this folklore and stuff from. And then whenever I wanted to become a dungeon master, I was looking deep into folklore already about things, and so it was simplistic for me to pull upon these things that a lot of people maybe heard wisps of, and then set something up to where they run into it, and then it seems somewhat familiar, and things like that, and I could work off of it. And of course, a lot of this folklore went to people they'd never understood or heard anything out of, and I quite often had to open up books and tell them, hey, you should read this here, pass it all around while we wait for the pizza. And why? I just want you to read that, and then we're going to talk, or whatever, because I got something else coming up. Or a lot of times I'd have pictures. A lot of these old brothers, Hildebrandt pictures and beautiful pictures, kind of like this, would show up. There's this magic hut that goes along with it. Well, whenever I started detecting and looking, around onto it, what I found was this magic hut was actually a house, and it had been changed into a giant house up on chicken legs now. And it was said to be this magic house. Now, in some stories, your children get lost to them, but other stories, people that were unwilling or orphans or things like this were given away to Baba Yaga to keep her essence. So it almost harkened to an idea of there was a sacrifice going on or something to help make this happen. A few of the descriptions come for her is that she has a bigger hooked nose and so on. And if you just look at the description that they kind of give of her, it's kind of witchish. But then again, any lady that has a hooked nose, I mean, come on, let's not be cruel as hell. But there you go. Now this magic hut, you see how small it is here. The kid could crawl in there and sit up and stuff, but that's about it. But part of the magic of this hut was that it supposedly would be seen in different sizes at different times, and that it changed size sometimes, and that the special magic of it is that it seemed much smaller than whenever you got into it. And so I kept looking into these tales of this idea and where it comes from, and where's this chicken leg thing come from, because chickens had come from the east and then been domesticated and things, and it just seemed odd you'd have this giant chicken house situation like Howl's Magic Castle, all these things that go with it, but when you go into it, it's it's huge. And so I looked, and there was always this thing done with the circle and the skulls and so on onto it, and it was a hut. Well, no, it's not a hut. Oh wait, it is a hut. What is it? Well, it's a yurt. The original description is a yurt, and if you've ever seen a yurt or just watch a video about a yurt, it's amazing. It's almost like a teepee. Some of those big teepees, I was lucky enough whenever I was a kid to go to a few Indian reservations and stuff. My dad was very enamored with Indians and folklore that went with them, and Wild West and everything, and so we went to Dodge City, Kansas, all these places and stuff. Got to go to Mount Rushmore. Luckily, we were there during the week that Jay Silverheels was there, and I got to meet Jay Silverheels from the movie and from the commercials that everybody remembers too, where somebody throws out trash and he just looks up and starts crying, and hey, this is part of the America Cleanup program we started a long time ago, and that was cool. But so he's very enamored in all this old Wild West type stuff, and so we went around to quite a few different places, and I remember the tales that they had of this Baba Yaga and this magic yurt type of thing whenever we went into a teepee, and I akined it to that because I hadn't been into a yurt or seen one at that time at all. But I understood that we went into a teepee, and you thought, well, It's kind of like that tent thing we had. Are we all going to get into it? And I don't know, this thing had a 15-foot circumference, maybe a little bigger, and fairly tall, though. Maybe, I don't know, 25 foot when I was a kid, hell. Well, you walk in there and it felt like, man, we can run around in circles in here and go stupid. It was just huge. And then these people sat over here and those people sat over here, and this whole area is wide open, and that over here, and this is where we do that, and there's the door, and I'm like, wow, this is like, that's huge. It's huge as anybody's big living room kind of thing. And so it's not as small as people think. And of course, they had a bunch of smaller ones, and these are little family huts, and then these bigger huts that they had and stuff that were huge. And you're like, wow, okay, that's cool. Anyhow, guys, so we went, and saw things like that, but yurts. So I got to eventually see what a yurt was, and what was amazing is now we figured out, the wheel come from up into these people in this area here, and they would put their yurts on actual giant planks of trees set up on giant daises and setups with these big wheels on them, and they were movable, and they would move these yurts around and stuff. And so this Baba Yaga's magic hut that keeps showing up here and here, and it moves magically, I don't know, with chicken wings, but I found a magic hut that moves, and it went around with shamans and things. And in these witches would have all these bones from different animals and things, because they had all this shamanistic crap going on. I think a lot of it gets derived out of that. I'd really like to attach the chicken bones to the chicken coming, all that type of stuff, but it's actually here and predates that a little bit, but not the domestic chicken we have now. And it seems to be an offshoot off of actually all the way over in the edge of China and stuff, and taking this fowl, like a guinea fowl type of thing, and then having genetically hybrided, just like the horses and things were, and all the grain and all this stuff. So these people had a pretty good idea of it, and they liked messing with things a whole lot and trying to make it better. Well, it puts out some strawberries. Let me see if I can make it put out a bunch more. I've got an idea. And people that had done this a few times could make things like that happen. And again, here we go with this Jack and the Beanstalk magic idea that people can get out of concepts that are really very something as simple as this guy did some Johnny Appleseed thing, again, I refer to, and you get these concepts that come out of it. So Baba Yaga's magic hut, it moves around, and so whenever we played it in Dungeons and Dragons, there were things that you had to do to appease her. There was stuff, and it could be the wildest things. During our whole time all together, we ran into her 3 different times. One of the campaigns, we had to keep tracking her down through, and as we did, we kept running into encounters. She kept giving us things to do, and after we did a couple of them, then you found the thing that it was. We'd keep seeing a raven or a crow show up, and whenever that happened, we knew that we were close to it. And then they always said there was a whistling in the trees whenever you knew that you were getting closer, that you would find these fabric pieces and things like that, and that seemed to be really set about to scare people off, to keep people from wanting to go, because you'd be scared because you ran into this Baba Yaga and her magic hut. And in reality, it seems like people in elder times started putting fabrics up, like tartans and things, and hanging them up at territorial boundaries. And so it was meant, the story was helped to meant scare you off from trying to invade other people and do things like that. And there's kind of a hunting ground boundary for these, Proto-Indo-European early hunters and things. One of the neatest stories that they had too, that gave a big correlation to me, was there was a story definitely entrenched into it, where it talked about the 4 horsemen that she had, that she could send out, and they would do these things. And these people were apparently undead, or you couldn't kill them, or it worked a bunch of different ways. Like if you killed one, the other one showed up right then, but then later the other one was back alive again somehow. They were wraiths sent out to do her bidding. In some stories it tells you 3, and a few of them it tells you 4, And there's an idea of a four horsemen. Now they could send out pestilence and things like that. And if she wasn't well taken by a village, then she could send out problems against that village and stuff. So you weren't supposed to piss off the old witch, right? But also, you know, let me flip that card again too. This witch was sought out by everybody. She would divine things. They would ask her, and she's the type person you would find out, when do we plant our grain? When do we do this? When do we do that? And she knew the calendar stuff. That was simplistic for her, but she was going to charge you money for it. She had to keep herself alive, rolling around in her yurt. And she'd be here one day, and then you'd go back to ask her the next week, and she wouldn't be there anymore. And how far away is she? Well, she got a head start on you. Can you find her? Which way did she go? You know, and does anybody know? Because she'll leave in the night, just like a gypsy. And then we get another flavor for what's going on in this concept, right? So it's kind of strange, all the correlations that go with it. And you've gotten stories that have come from this that really pull it all the way from some enchanted old maiden lady to a baby killer to, I mean, it goes far different ways. And now we blend it into an idea of a modern witch, and she has this magic hut that walks around on magic chicken feet. Let me go to my Dungeons and Dragons game, and I'll show you something that kind of correlates to it in the area that kind of does that we can go to. Okay, I'm here in a little sunny area that we normally go to, but what I really need to do is go to Barovia. And here's all the places I could go to. I mean, there's a myriad of them here, but we'll go to Barovia. Now, the story about how you get into Barovia, and strangely in this game, it's the same whenever I played Dice D&D and things like that, and it's also strangely the tales you find in the folklore, is that, see how this is covered in a mist in this area, that what you have to do is you head towards a certain area, which to everybody in that area is not towards the nearest town or some place that you know well. So you have to be acting like you're going into the unknown, and you go through this mist, which I did coming in here. There's a whole trek leading in here before I ever make it to that gate that's right there. And whenever you do, you follow these guys you run into that are gypsies, and they bring you out here, and you go through the mist. And once you come out the mist, all of a sudden, bam, you're in Barovia, and you are nowhere near Kansas anymore. And then you get all this Tudorish type tile stuff and everything, and it gives you a lot of flair to it, and so on, you know. And where's the castle at over here? Ah, there it is up on the hill, and you see the big moon behind it, right? And there's a vampire that goes with us and everything. I think I showed this in my Halloween video I did a little bit of. But let me come up here and I'll show you Baba Yaga herself, but it's done in a different way in here, just to do it in a different way. There are witches all over the place, like right there, Barovian witch, right? And she's just supposed to be one of these wandering witches, and they've come here during the other times. And there's a house that got taken over by witches and so on, but the big thing is the little bitty windmill thing that you go into here. This is the Baba Yaga situation. I hope I already have the deal to go into this. No, pitiful. So it looks like inside there I might be able to go around in a little circle, but when you get in there, the place is huge. It drops down into what looks like underground pit or a basement that's twice, no, 4 times the size of the inner room, which is twice the size of that room. And so inside of there is a major witch you have to fight. There's scarecrows that are alive. Woo, they're coming after me. Giant spiders, cauldrons like this with witches, and you gotta, everybody always wants me to whoop something. Scarecrow. I didn't really use anything in my life there. There's tricks that you have to do where you have to turn these cauldrons sour. There's ones that you have to do where you have to kill off these spiders and take their venom from them. There's ones you have to do this, ones you have to do that. I've already done it all in this whole area, so I'm pretty much cleaned out of it. There's these hellhounds and wolves you have to clear off. There's a cemetery right over here that you have to do things for an undead that's been there before. You have to clear that fountain. You have to kill off all these people. There's major encounters that happen right up in here. You have to do something at that mausoleum in another encounter. So there's a lot of stuff that goes along with little places in here, and of course kind of ticks you off because you go one area and then they tell you to go right back and do something else there you didn't seem to do last time, they didn't tell you about. And this would lead up to Castle Ravenloft that's right there, and we can go do an encounter. But really what you do now is you queue into it, because you have to have 5 people. You're not going to solo any of this crap, that's for sure. And if you're a healer, you can sit and take a live, but you'll never kill anybody. So it kind of works out that way, I guess you'd say. But yeah, Morovia. You go here and there's gypsies and stuff. Wow, let me go over to this gypsy and you can kind of see the idea and the flair they've got going on here. There's our major meeting spot. Be wary. Ah, it's fixing to be daytime, so that might ruin the environment just a little bit here. But it's still going to be so cloudy even whenever it's fully day. By the way, now it's day, so it just fades in real quick and fades out. They don't have a big thing of the in between, but it stays just cloudy as hell all day. That's just the way it looks. Where's the caravan at today? It's over here. Yeah, here's your caravan of people and these caravan of gypsies. There's the Vistani camp, right? There's a whole bunch of them that are over here, and you talk to these different people. And
my friend, it's good to see you again here.
It's good to see you too, Stanmere. And there's guys you can trade in these tarot cards to and stuff, and they're gypsy dudes. Have I done it this week yet? I can buy one. You get a random unique tarot card, and slowly you can get a full tarot card deck. Whenever you do, you can make an artifact out of it, which gives you some kind of random trait people can grab a hold of. It's not the best thing in the game, but if you can con somebody else into doing it and letting you grab it, hey, that sure adds to your damage. So yeah, and oh, this lady that's in here, she's it's not going to let me in because I don't have one active in my pocket there in my deal. But there's a lady in here. She reads tarot cards, and after she does, everything changes out here. You go out and you have to do a hunt, whether it's for a witch or a scarecrow or different things, and you fight them, and you can get extra pieces of armor. It was one of the big boons when we first got here. But yeah, Baba Yaga's natural Majic Hut. That's something that really is enamored in D&D, but then again, D&D really is about everything we've been talking about. They just take it and twist it into folklore and be able to use it in a campaign situation, you know. And they really try to steer away from the Bible and use everything else. And in doing so and studying a lot of it, I found a lot of connections before I ever really got into it, and I ever even got into high school really well. And then once I got through high school and into college and things and started actually studying these cultures and things, it became quite evident where things had come from. So it just got worse and worse, or better and better, or deeper and deeper as I went with the idea. Played Dungeons and Dragons a couple of times. We did it again in college time. We did it even after college at one point with a group of people that had all played before and stuff, and it was pretty neat too. But it leads down a bunch of paths too, that if you're trying to study something like that, or something like what we talk about, it does show you a whole lot to it. Anyhow, guys, that's just one piece of folklore and one something that shows you an attachment, but it also comes from the East. One tale of Baba Yaga, quite often whenever she's in the Far East in her tales, she's going west. Quite often in her tales when she's in the Far East, she goes east. But even though she's over here in Yugoslavia, there are tales from that land where she is headed to Europe and so on, more headed to the west. So it flip-flops and goes back and forth, and she's a woman on the move, this shaman that moves around in many places, that carries all kinds of magic, and a lot of it really seemed to do with divination and seemed to do with medicines and things along that line, and stories came up out of it. Now the oddity here is that it seems to span over some 600-700 year period, and then that's when it peters out. But it goes on from then in these one Slavic people that still to this day will tell you that if you don't eat your greens that you're not eating on your plate, that Baba Yaga will come take you away. And there's all these old stories. It's in Dungeons and Dragons of the things like Will o' the Wisp. And it's an idea like fireflies, that somebody's going to chase a fairy or a firefly, a lightning bug, and in chasing a lightning bug, they're going to perhaps go off and never be seen again. And so these are stories to keep kids close, just like the stories of the Brothers Grimm and things. And leaving the trail of breadcrumbs for you to come back, oh, that's a great idea. But in some of these origin stories, that ended up feeding the raven so he would lead you to Baba Yaga's hut. There's all these things that go together and they keep showing up. Now, I hear recently, now I haven't seen this, and I hear I've just got to, is Keanu Reeves in John Wick, and how somehow it's mentioned in there in some way. I don't know how much a pivotal role it plays into it, and I guess I need to look into it. But yeah, Baba Yaga's Magic Hut. There might be something they show in that. That's one thing I keep trying to tell people is it keeps showing up in your face, this ancient lore and stuff, and everybody just giggles it off, and they don't have any idea where a lot of it comes from whenever it's right in your face. And Baba Yaga's magic hut and her magic cauldron and her witch's brews and things she makes. And if you piss her off, instead of giving you healing potions, she'll give you poison potions. In fact, if you piss her off and she's giving you healing potions, she can snap her fingers or do her little thing and they will turn bad. She can make it to where you have to do a saving throw to pretty much everything in your bag if you piss her off. So there's a few things that really make her to where she has outstanding magic in the game and in reality, and that's an echo of people giving power to this shamanistic witch that used to be able to tell you a lot of things, but a lot of them are zodiacal, a lot of them are medicinal and things like that. But the reason that didn't carry in and smoothly work out is that witches were bad. Oh, witch bad. It's terrible. It's terrible. Even in the Bible, they consult people and witches and so on, but yet then they tell you you can't consult a witch. Witches are bad and ladies are bad and all this type of stuff, and it just goes with that whole woman bad thing that goes into it. And then, of course, the witch trials and everything that came out of it. And the barbers were really the people that used to do the medicine. The people that cut your hair were the people that would give you medicine. A lot of them thought that bleeding bad spirits out of your body and silly ass things were the way to go with certain things because they didn't understand. And it's amazing how much we've come to understand once we were able to freely try to think outside of the box that we were trying to be held into for so long. And now, hopefully, the fog of Barovia starts to fade away and we can realize our way not just into Baba Yaga's hut of wisdom, but maybe our way back out and realize how everybody can get there, that it just right through this fog right here. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe and enjoy, and we'll go on to something else. Probably should have saved this for Halloween, but hey, ooh, why not now? Peace.